I would like to start from their reintroductions. Most of them been there here before, but would be a good start to have a brief introduction again.
Hello, everyone. Brad Yassar. I'm the CEO and founder of Beyond Enterprises. Been in the space for quite some time. Early days of Bitcoin. Started with mining and fell in love with it and continued the journey to this day.
Great. Hello, everybody. My name is Sheraz Ahmed, marketing lead of Smart Valor, the world's first security token exchange with a focus on alternative investments, and we're based in the Swiss Crypto Valley.
Good morning, Matthew Arnett, Bahamas PO8, leading the new frontier for non-fungible tokens.
And I'm Michael Turpin, and you just heard from me.
So we will go with the 101 first because things need to be sorted out. What makes utility token a utility and what makes the stable coin a stable coin. So you mentioned, Matthew, about the non-fungible. If you can start with that brief elaboration on that point. What is the non-fungible?
Sure. So a non-fungible token is one that, unlike Bitcoin, every single token has a unique aspect. So one Bitcoin, what makes it money is that it's fungible. That's one of the characteristics of money. It has to be uniform. That's why diamonds aren't money, because every diamond is unique. You can't just simply say, I'll give you 5 diamonds and give you 3 and change. Whereas you can do that with gold. You can do it with silver. So fungibility is basically that everything's uniform. And so non-fungible tokens take the blockchain, the public blockchain, and give it a new use case, which is digital collectibles, digital assets. So you can have whatever technology that it represents. That's how you tokenize a single piece of real estate, or a fraction of 1,000th of a piece of real estate, or, an Angry Bird in Angry Bird's blockchain whenever that comes around.
So I'll just add a little bit to that. What I like to say as well is that with non-fungible tokens, they can't be swapped. So it's not like 2 Bitcoins or 2 Ether or whatever have you, where you can swap them because the value is the same. The underlying asset is normally different with a very unique presence and value, as he just explained. But I think that's a good way for people to immediately understand that those 2 tokens cannot be swapped. Once you understand that, then you could build on the definition from there.
Right, Shiraz, you guys are doing the security relevant exchange.
Yes.
Security token for you to elaborate a bit on that.
Okay, well, a security token is essentially any token that is going to give revenue. So, for example, equity in a company is going to be a security token. Here at Smart Valor, we're focusing more on alternative investments. So this will be portions of real estate, for example, and commodities.
Brad, we discussed yesterday as well, brief elaboration on difference between the securitized tokens and tokenized securities and security token.
Well, the tokenized securities is the entry level. That's the simplest way of bringing blockchain into the securities world. So when you tokenize a security, you take a traditional security, you create an encrypted digital representation, and you have a tokenized security. A security token can be literally anything we can imagine. Right now we divide the securities into securities, debt, rev share, revenue. And those 3 categories have existed for quite some time, since those different legislations have been passed around the world. Whereas a security token can be all 3 of those and then some. It's only limited by our imagination and, of course, the restrictions the legislators decide to put on it. But there's a brave new world out there. When you talk about security tokens, that wasn't easily doable prior to blockchain and prior to fractional ownership and prior to smart contracts, where now your security token can be a smart contract that changes over time. I mean, try to do that with a paper contract. you're going to have enforcement issues, you're going to have to hire people. So the cost is going to be so high that no one thought of, dividends changing or coupons changing or things like that in an automated way or in a reactionary way prior to security tokens. So one is an evolution of the other.
Right. Michael, I was going through your profile, and you have been involved in the hundreds of ICOs, as it's mentioned there. The trend was towards utility tokens till the last year. Has it been changing, shifting, and why is that so?
Well, I think the only thing that changed was when the price of Bitcoin dropped. After Craig Wright said he was going to kill it. We went into crypto winter, and I think everything dropped. It's not like there was this huge boom in security tokens. I think people were just looking as entrepreneurs, how do I go and work around the existing rules? And it was much more difficult when the existing rules weren't clear. And so they're not clear in security tokens either. It's not like you can just go out and say, okay, great, here's my security token, sign me up. And utility tokens are not dead. ICOs are not dead. So far, IEOs in 2019, $1.5 billion. That's higher than the ICO market has been in any year except for 2018 and the end of 2017. So ICOs are simply, morphing into IEOs, and IEOs usually involve a pre-sale that would be otherwise called, ICO just became a bad word, just like .com, but it didn't mean that Google and Facebook weren't able to go public in the future. They just didn't call them Google.com and Facebook.com. So utility tokens, which is a, stupid word, consumption tokens is sort of the one that's being more used lately because a consumption token basically means it's something you consume rather than something you hold as an asset. And I think it's a better word. I mean, there's government comes up with all sorts of different things. Virtual currencies. Nobody in the community calls it that, right? And that also then includes anything that's not tokenized. You could have a video game sitting on a cloud that can still be a virtual currency. So ICOs and IEOs are coming back strong because there's a need for them. I mean, if you have a system that's going to involve the blockchain, that's going to involve the incentivization and monetization of an asset that involves a community, the one thing that I would say is probably, just like in the .coms when they came back with the next wave of, consumer internet offerings, like Google, like Facebook, was that it was a lot harder to fund just a ridiculous deal. And a lot of ridiculous deals got funded in, early 2018 because supply and demand. There was a lot of money looking for how to make money on an ICO, just like there's a lot of money looking to make money on the .coms because everybody thought anything with the name .com would be the next Amazon, and it wasn't. So I think that you're going to have a next wave that'll probably take us to an even higher level than you had in 2017 by 2021. And you're going to have your next wave of platforms has always been what does the best. If you look at the top 20 tokens, most of them are platforms. And then, because you can then build things on top of platforms. Then you have payment tokens. You have, there've been a lot of attempts to have storage of different types of assets. I'm an advisor to VideoCoin. We help launch storage. Those are going to continue because with the startup world, I mean, startups and blockchain are not divorced from each other. As long as there'll be startups, there'll be new ideas in blockchain. As long as there are communities that are willing to fund them, and jurisdictions like Malta, like Bermuda, and a number of new European organizations, countries now that are just getting into the game, like San Marino and Armenia. As long as there are countries that are saying, bring your money to our banks and lawyers. If the U.S. doesn't want you, you're going to continue to have a thriving market because, less than 1% of the world has any involvement in blockchain. It's obviously still on an up cycle.
Right. Matthew, you are coming from Bahamas, and every country is having different kind of a set of definition or classification for the tokens. How would you describe about the Bahamas classification of tokens?
Well, I think what we've done over the last year and a half is we've tried to be in a very conciliatory fashion, looking at what other jurisdictions did very early on, looking at other definitions that are out there, and then trying to come up with a set of definitions that help creators to do just that, create. And so people can not worry so much about the legality, leave the legality to the lawyers and to the jurisdiction, and just be able to say, hey, here's a clear set of rules. So you don't need to worry that this jurisdiction's security commission is going to come after you. Once you operate within this fashion, you'll be fine. So I think we've defined the rules quite clearly. We've just had a period of 60 days putting out those laws to a lot of different entities, whether it be blockchain infrastructure, whether it be from banking sides, other lawyers in different jurisdictions, other consultants, and we've had a lot of information come back to us. So we're going to give it one more go again and maybe rewrite some stuff. And then once that's done and the summer is gone, hopefully the end of August, we will pass those and they will be enacted into law. And then I think people can say, hey, here's a jurisdiction that I'm clear about, I know where I fit, and you can be comfortable that you're embraced there from A to Z, not just clear definitions, but also banking services and so on.
And I'd say any entrepreneurs who are looking for a jurisdiction, you have to look at all aspects of the jurisdiction. Typically, there's the good cops and the bad cops in any jurisdiction. The good cops are the trade department, right? They're like, come on down, we want your business. We'll find you lawyers. We're great. Here's our rules. And in 2014, I think it was, the Isle of Man was saying they're going to be the friendliest jurisdiction in the world. They're calling themselves Crypto Island. They had a conference called the Crypto Island Conference. They got everybody down there. The business development board was like saying, hey, rah, we're Crypto Island. And then that day, the central bank came out with something saying, we don't want these guys down here. Who are these people?
So let me just jump on that a second. So the great thing about the Bahamas is we sit at a table of stakeholders where you have the Prime Minister's office, the central bank, the Security Exchange Commission, the banking board, the group of lawyers. Everybody's there. So we make decisions together. So things like that is where inexperience comes in. It's when you don't have communication. So the Trade Commission says, come here, and then the central bank says, get out of here. So when we speak with one unified voice. So when we invite people to the Bahamas, because we've been in this business for 100 years of banking services, legal services, this isn't new to us. So I think the great thing is that when you have a jurisdiction that has a track record, you can go back and say, well, how have these people done things in the past? You can see. And so I get his point was very correct. So people should look at the full spectrum of the jurisdiction. But one thing about the Bahamas is when we speak with one voice, that's it.
Very good. Sheraz, FINMA from Switzerland came up with the classification of tokens last year, and they were, I think, the first one who brought it forward. Technology has evolved, so is the field of the tokenomics as well. Mm-hmm. Is there any change after that definitions which they released last year, or is it the same?
So it stayed the same, and I mean, the Swiss are very, very thought-through individuals, and they've classified tokens into three elements: so payment, utility, and asset tokens. And the definitions are broad, and they allow for hybrid tokens as well. So you can create a token which is a hybrid payment and utility token. So you can put any type of token that even exists nowadays into one of these three classifications.
All right. With that, Brad, you are from the tech world as well. So what is the preference of a platform? Michael briefly mentioned that there should be a preference of a platform bringing up a utility token or a payment token or the security token. Do you have any specific preferences when you decide to go for any token, or there should be?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Like
preference for what?
They all do different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there?
Do you have a preference for a car or a plane? It depends where you're trying to go.
No. I mean that platform for building those tokens. Do you need to have any preference? Technology preference?
There are technical restrictions or challenges.
Yes.
So if you try to build a security token on the blockchain, like Bitcoin blockchain, that would be a much more difficult task than if you try to do it on Ethereum, where there's already several protocols developed to have unique identifiers and expanded envelopes and things that facilitate that. And then there are projects like Polymath that are specifically designed to issue securities on the blockchain. So of course there's going to be preferences. To give you an example, we have a project that's about rainforest conservation. So when we were looking to select a blockchain for Poseidon, we looked at the footprint of each blockchain, because if we're trying to be green and save the nature, we're not going to use a Bitcoin blockchain to do it because it has a huge carbon footprint. So we went with Stellar. Now, I wouldn't necessarily go with Stellar for a project that requires smart contracts because that's not what it's designed for. So, of course, both the project scope and goals, as well as the type of token you want to issue, determine what technology, what underlying platform you're going to use. You know, sometimes it's going to be EOS, other times still to this day, although it has its growing pains. You know, it could be Ethereum, you know, it could be Neo. I mean, there are different options. Obviously, better you understand each of those options, easier it is to decide whether you want to do an NFT, what do you use, what would be the fastest, and obviously the most financially sound option to use. But I think it's more project specific than just group specific. Like, oh, if it's an NFT, you have to use this. That we don't have preferences like that.
But just to piggyback on that a little bit, with non-fungible tokens, what we've done is, you know, originally Ethereum had a few standards that you could use, whether it's 115, 998. And so we spoke with not just EOS, but also Tezos, and we tried to build a small little community of developers who could create non-fungible ecosystems on existing infrastructure. Even here, I was speaking with Dave from Skycoin and asking them, okay, if we had this particular standard, would we be able to have a non-fungible token standard on your infrastructure? And I think the reason we do that as a non-fungible kind of alliance or just a group of guys is because we realize that as everybody's going to have their preference in blockchain, whether it is they think this is faster, cheaper, smarter, whatever it is. But we want to make sure that non-fungible tokens has a place or has a community on all of them. So different developers who've already developed previously or thinking about how they could develop could now say, okay, I have one example. We're working on a project with Zilliqa. And that project has to do with tokenizing assets, but with non-fungible tokens. And they've had a gaming side yet, but no real asset side. So we're creating that first use case. And then other developers can come in and say, let's expand this, built on this. And then hopefully over time, there will be one sort of platform where you can look at any blockchain and say, here's the standard for Zilliqa. Here's the standard for Ethereum, for EOS, for this, that, and the next. So I think as someone that wants to see the overall ecosystem just mature and expand, we've tried to choose to align ourselves with those core blockchains and then help the local developers there to develop those standards.
I was going to say, Skycoin already has NFTs. Their version of, we worked with them in the beginning as well. Their version of like CryptoKitties is called Kitty Cash.
Right. Mike, staying with you, and we were discussing about FINMA and Bahamas as well. Malaysia came up with their own classification or definitions of the tokens. Do we need a global body to come up with a universal language for these tokens?
I think right now there can be recommendations and you know, like with the internet, right? You've got the W3, but it's not. Once you get governments controlling things and making final decisions for the whole world, which I don't really see happening in any industry, even real estate, you know, then all of a sudden their final word is the final word and there's no place you can run to. I mean, the reason why smaller, quicker moving jurisdictions like the Bahamas, like Malta, like Bermuda, like Singapore are able to go and draw a lot of business is because they're not bogged down in bureaucracy. And, you know, it's an ecosystem that allows, you know, there's certain things that the whole world agrees on are bad, right? It's very few places where you can say, oh yeah, I can just go and get away with murder here because it's not against the law in like Vanuatu or something like that. But there are some places that it's harder to extradite from, and with cryptocurrency, I would sort of put it into three camps right now. There's the ones that currently just ban cryptocurrency or ban ICOs because they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, pretty large places like India and China, I think they'll eventually come around to having rules, and they're not just going to have literally a third of the entire world without crypto. And they're still interested in like variations of the blockchain if you start talking there. And a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs simply operate out of Singapore. And then you've got ones that have what they consider to be their version of responsible regulation, and they have no idea in most cases what the hell they're talking about. If you ever watched the initial hearings in the U.S. Congress about Facebook, you think by the end of the hearing they were going to ban Facebook. Wait, what do you mean? You actually track people? I mean, how can we stop that? And you got one congressman, Brad Sherman, out of California, where every single time it comes up, he's like, we must ban Bitcoin and criminalize it immediately. It's hurting the U.S. dollar. So that's obviously an extreme position. And then you've got the liberal places that are typically smaller jurisdictions that say, hey, if there are legitimate business cases for this technology, we should go like the internet in the early days and let it flourish. And come on down. We're a jurisdiction that's going to let it flourish. Don't do bad things. We still have a lot of enforcement of fraud and criminal activity, which is illegal already on the books. But as long as you're not tripping those things, you shouldn't have to worry. Like if you're a mobile app developer, you shouldn't have to worry about, oh my God, I just inadvertently triggered some telecom law and I'm going to jail, right? You should have the same kind of surety of developing an innovative product in blockchain as you do currently in mobile apps.
Right. Thank you. With that, it was a small, insightful discussion, and thank you, my panelists, and thank you very much for your cooperation.